Welcome to the Orange County Crosstalk show. I'm Bolourchi. I'm here at the Board of Council of Orange County in beautiful Fairmont Hotel. Tonight they have the annual holiday dinner celebration, and the keynote speaker is the Excellency Doer, Ambassador of Canada to the United States. He's going to be talking about the Canada-U.S. relations, foreign policy, diplomatic relations, defense, and the environment. In a moment, we are going to listen to his talk. Prior to the Ambassador of Canada talks, Sir Eldon Griffiths, the past president of Orange County Board of Council, will talk about the 2013 events and expectation for 2014. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Now, of course, the other big event in Africa is the sad passing of Mandela. I met him once in Soweto when he was a boxer. This is before, it shows how old I am. This was before he was incarcerated in Robben Island. I formed no particular impression of him at that time. But I did encounter his then wife, Winnie. And Winnie was a lady of many parts. She spread her favours widely. And when Mandela was sent to jail in Robben Island, I had a little bit of a falling out with her. However, she stayed in the fold. And after all those long, long years, when Nelson Mandela emerged from the prison, Winnie was waiting for him. I need not go into the details because the media have been absolutely filled with the story of Nelson Mandela over recent years. But it's interesting to me that no less than 54 heads of state turned up in Cape Town and in Johannesburg to honour him and to recognise the great significance that South Africa will have in the future of that great continent. South Africa is filled with metals. It's vast quantities of coal. It's not certain there's anything in the way of oil there, though we can't be sure. But what I think Mandela has achieved, and what is now apparent, is that South Africa is going to be one of the main players in the world that we are to face in times to come. The final bit of Africa I want to mention is, of course, in the east. Let me just mention, first of all, the South Sudan. They're immensely poor, but they have oil, and they rely on getting it out. Well, they can't get it out very easily, except to the Red Sea. And that is where the Chinese, who need the oil, are building a port, and the Indians, who also need oil, are paying for the infrastructure that will enable that South Sudanese oil to flow to the Red Sea and thence via the tankers to the eastern countries that need it. Well, that is so far so good, but unfortunately there is something very close to a civil war going on, and to the south, South Sudan merges into the Congo. And the Congo, I promise you I won't go into, because you could spend the whole night and even then only touch the fringes of that vast and complicated country. But to the south in the Congo, or near the Congo, are the nations of Rwanda and Burundi. And they've both got involved in many of the problems of the Congo. And it's something that, having created South Sudan, the United States, I'm afraid, is going to have to deal with quite a lot of problems arising from Rwanda and Burundi. On the other side, however, is the Horn of Africa. The most disturbing area there is, of course, Somalia. And how many of you remember that rather disturbing movie called Black Hawk Down? Black Hawk Down was a bold, aggressive, I think a very unwise action by the United States military, which frankly came to a very bad end. The movie exaggerated it to some extent, but there's no doubt that it was a military setback of some size. And of course, north of there, Somalia, remaining in a state of near chaos, but there has been some improvement. It is more stable now in that area around Mogadishu. You have the Horn of Africa, and small countries and large, a French base, Djibouti, which they still operate, and the quite large and important country of Ethiopia. When I was young, the Emperor Haile Selassie, as he was called, was one of our heroes. And in fact, one of the reasons we took on the Italians and defeated them in the early part of World War II was to liberate Ethiopia, or Abyssinia, as it was known at that time. Today, Ethiopia is a significant country. It's a very beautiful country, a very large country. And it is part of that whole area of the Nilotic, the Nile Valley, and the Horn of Africa, in which I think we shall be increasingly involved. And finally, of course, in Africa, there is Egypt. A sad, happy, irritating, exasperating country. Now there I went to Egypt about just on 2 years ago as they were gradually moving against the dictatorship of, forgotten his name now, but in any case, you know who I mean. And he was brought down and replaced by Morsi, Mahmoud Morsi. Now that was an open and fair and clean election as far as anybody could make out. I was in Egypt about that time, and the political secretary at the United States Embassy was a lady of some proportion, and we did a joint television performance together, and to my surprise it was half an hour. Well, normally if you're a politician you get about 3 minutes and you're doing very well, but we got half an hour, and I was surprised to discover that there are 1 million English speakers who constitute the audience of this particular television program in Cairo. And she was quite clear that Morsi was never going to rule. Why? Well, she said he's part of the Brotherhood, and of course he is, or was, and the Brotherhood would never rule Egypt. That question is absolutely up in the air. Morsi at the moment is the only freely elected president in jail, and he's facing a trial very shortly by the Egyptian army that more or less displaced him. And it is more than likely that as and when they promulgate a new constitution, replacing the Morsi version, that the new ruler of Egypt may well be Field Marshal Sisi, who is the head of the army and the navy and the Air Force, and the main driver of those who removed Morsi. Now that places the United States and the United Kingdom in a very difficult position. We were all for the election. We were not all in favor of the result. We were all for the army bringing order, but not in favor of the many, many hundreds, probably well over 1,000 young people who've been shot by the army in Cairo. And now we face the prospect that the new field marshal may end up as a revival of the very same dictatorship that Egypt has suffered from over so many years. I don't know the answer, but I just want to tell you, because this is a time when we need a little bit of happiness as well as otherwise, that President Clinton, at one stage when he was a student in Oxford, this is before he became famous, he was confronted by a challenge, a literary challenge in Oxford, where he was to find a way of including in a poem the great city of Timbuktu. Now, I don't know whether you ever tried to put Timbuktu into a poem. It's not at all easy. But what set him off was a Rudyard Kipling poem, which said simply, "Across the burning desert sands trekked the dusty caravan. Camel riders 2 by 2, destination Timbuktu." Now the Clinton version. Tim and I a-hunting went, came across 3 whores in a tent. They were 3 and we were 2, so I bucked 1 and Tim bucked 2. Now let me leave now.